Mats!
Yeah, what's up?
You've already made 2 devlogs, but what does the game actually look like?
Do you seriously not know? If you're new here, I'm Max, and for almost a year now, my team and I have been building what we think could be the first anime FPS game on Roblox. Now, if you've seen my year recap or my February recap, then you already know a lot of the development journey so far. But over the last few weeks, after all the positive comments on those videos, and literally hundreds of people asking to test the game, we realized something pretty major. I've been making all these devlogs, but I haven't really focused on the gameplay yet, like, at all. And that's a problem, because all the extra features we've been adding are cool, but they're still just extras. They're not the actual core of the game. And in our case, the core are our characters. Right now, the game has 6 characters in total. You can unlock them by rolling, and before matchmaking, you can select any character you own. Each has their own playstyle, strengths, weaknesses, and weapons, so the goal is for every character to feel different depending on how you'd like to play. Now, you might be wondering,
but hey, if I'm new, how do I even play if I don't own any characters yet?
That's where our starter agents come in, Rex and Fragato. When you join the game for the first time, you can choose one of these 2 and jump straight in. And honestly, they're both really good starting points, just for very different kinds of players. Let's start with Fragato. Fragato is one of the most recognizable and iconic anime-inspired characters. When we were first deciding on which characters to include, he was the first on our list. Every character in the game has 4 unique elements: a primary weapon, a secondary weapon, an ultimate, and a character-specific passive. And fun fact, the very first weapon we ever made for the game was Fragato's primary, the beam. Now, if your aim isn't amazing, this is a fantastic primary to have. It's simple, reliable, and does pretty solid damage. You can just hold down to spam the beam, which makes it really beginner friendly. At the moment, the beam still uses ammo, but we're actually changing that. Instead of ammo, it's going to use a cooldown bar, so if you're holding it for too long, it'll overheat and disable for a few seconds. That means you won't be able to mindlessly spam it forever. So then the obvious question is, what happens when your primary runs out in the middle of a fight? And that's where your secondary comes in. For every character, it's really important that the primary and secondary feel different enough to make the kit flexible. Fragato's secondary is called the Atomic Boom, and it pretty much does exactly what it sounds like. It's a slower, more explosive attack with a bigger range and decent damage. We've probably buffed this weapon like 5 times already, to the point that I even made a video about it asking people how we could improve it. It's still a bit trickier than the beam, but if you're good with it, it can be really strong. And then of course, we have the ultimate. Because let's be honest, an anime game without ultimates just isn't an anime game. You charge your ultimate by getting eliminations, and the exact amount you need depends on the match size. So naturally, you'll need more eliminations in a 4v4 than you would in a 1v1. But once you hit that threshold and activate it, Fragato enters his ultimate state and his damage gets multiplied. Basically, he just becomes ridiculously powerful. Now, a quick side note, one of the hardest parts of making an anime-inspired game is deciding how much inspiration you take from the original characters, because if we copy a character too closely, well... But if we change them too much, the anime community is going to hate us. So if you're an anime expert and you're angry at the names or how I'm describing things, just know I'm really trying to make sure that the game doesn't get taken down, so it kind of has to be a little different. Anyway, Fragato is just one of our starter characters. If you're not into these sort of screaming energy blasts and you'd rather play as a more distinguished gentleman in a suit, and maybe a little bit of a more difficult character, then let me introduce you to Rex. Rex is actually an OG anime character, and for a while we weren't even sure whether we'd want to keep him in the game. But in the end, we felt like he was a really good starter pick. His primary is the classic FPS style double pistols. And honestly, what's not to like? They're fast, they have a solid amount of ammo, and if you land your shots properly, you can eliminate someone in a single clip. They also have a small headshot multiplier, which Fragato's beam actually doesn't have. Now his secondary is absolutely incredible. It's so good, it has unlimited ammo. Okay, it's just his arms, but seriously, I mean, he's a martial arts expert. We just had to add it in. And sure, it's not the coolest, but just look at the damage it does. On top of that, while you have his fists equipped, you can double jump. So it's not just a close range damage option, it also gives him a lot of extra movement, which makes him more mobile than people would expect. I know at first Rex doesn't sound that impressive, but trust me, gameplay wise, his ultimate is probably one of my favorites in the whole game. It's this special gem-themed heavy revolver called Sentinel. You guys are gonna have to try it out yourself, but this gun feels so smooth. It does a ton of damage, and with a headshot you can eliminate opponents with a single shot. But because we wanted every character to have at least one unique twist, Rex's ultimate has a little mechanic built into it. If you aim at the ground and time your shot with a jump correctly, you can launch yourself way into the air and hit some really unexpected trick shots. So even though Rex looks simple on the surface, his ultimate gives him a lot of skill expression and makes him really fun. Now in my last video I mentioned that we had started working on skins, and because Rex and Fragato are both starter characters and common rarity, we worked on theirs first. So for Rex we've got this shirtless version and a puffer jacket version. And for Fragato we've got this absolutely dripped out skin that I think turned out really well. Of course, those two aren't the only characters in the game. There are 4 others you can unlock by playing well, earning currency and rolling for them. And out of those, the most common and the only character in the rare rarity is Ryuya. And honestly, I can already tell this is going to be some people's favorite character, because even though he's only rare, he's kind of insane. His primary is a neon bow. It does really solid damage, it has a headshot multiplier, but what makes it stand out is the reflection effect. If your arrow hits any surface, it can bounce and keep traveling. So you can technically hit some pretty crazy trick shots if you know where your opponent is hiding and you can sneak a deflected shot onto them. Obviously though, you need some pretty good aim for this bow, and when you're really close to someone, it's very tough to keep using it. That's where his secondary comes in. It's called Arrow Storm, and it basically solves that problem by making things much easier at a closer range. If you hold down shoot, the arrows automatically track towards your target. So even if your aim isn't great, you can still hit your shots. Each arrow only does 4 damage, but it fires quickly and is super useful for finishing people off. And then we get to the ultimate, which honestly might just be overpowered. This is his crossbow, but not a normal one. It fires pretty quickly, does decent damage, but the main strength is that the arrows go straight through objects. So yes, that means if someone is hiding behind walls, you can still hit them, even multiple walls. Which means that if you're fighting a Ryuya with this ultimate, you just can't stand still and hope a cover will save you. If they know where you are, they're always going to keep pressuring you and you have to keep moving. Now we've covered the first 3 characters, but there's another mechanic I haven't talked about yet. Passives. Passives are basically small buffs that can make your character better in certain situations. A lot of them are generic, which means any character can get them. For example, there's Haste, which increases movement speed, Iron Skin, which reduces damage taken, Overkill, which increases the damage you deal, Recovery, which generates your health once you drop below 100 HP, Comeback, which boosts your damage when you're on low health, and finally, Leap, which gives you double jump at all times. But on top of those, every character also has one character-specific passive. These are made to match the character's playstyle, and they're both the rarest and the strongest passives. For Rex, that passive is Martial Mastery. Since he's a martial artist, it makes his fists stronger, and it also reduces the damage he takes while he has his fists equipped. Fragato has Compounding Rage, which makes his damage increase the more consistently he hits a target. So if you're landing a lot of hits in a row, he just keeps getting better. And Ryuya probably has the craziest passive of all 3. When he gets low on health, he spawns a shield that reflects damage back at the attacker. So if you shoot his shield, you take all that damage yourself. Honestly, it might be too good and we'll probably have to nerf it a bit, but that's also kind of the challenge with this. Every character has to feel unique, they need strong weapons, they need clear strength and a real reason to actually play them. But at the same time, they can't all be too strong and they still need to be balanced enough that the game feels fair. That's one of the hardest parts of making a game like this. So next time you complain about balancing in a game or saying a character is broken, just remember it's really difficult. But yeah, I'd really love to know what you think about these first 3 characters. Are there any abilities that seem too strong or maybe too weak? We're also trying to set up a closed test session and tester applications in our Discord server, so if you want to actually try the game out and help us test whether these characters feel balanced, definitely join. So yeah, subscribe to this channel as well as my new dev channel and join the Anime League Discord server, and I'll see you soon.